Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on another Backyard Farming Supply webinar. We're doing a little step up today. We've moved over to the OBS platform and we're excited to see how it's going to work for you guys. So let us know if there's anything that you see that we could do better in the production value, because we're going to continue to step it up, and I'm pretty excited for today. Thanks, Backyard Farming Supply team. And while we wait for everybody to trickle in here today for the garden myths, I wanted to tease what we're going to talk about today. So, there's a lot of gardening myths out there. There's a lot of myths in general. I mean, I think that in the last couple of years, some misinformation has been some of the biggest global confusions, right? Whether it's about anything, not to get on any soapboxes, but stay focused on food and gardening. I think that there's a lot of myths in the garden that really are brought to people's attention and can particularly steer one or groups of people in a certain direction that might not necessarily be a good direction for those people overall. So I'm going to start with one that I kind of teased about last week, and that was the thing about the peppers. Do you guys remember? If you remember, post the comment down below, because we're trying to get engagement with you guys. We're trying to build the momentum. So thank you guys so much for telling your friends about the last week's webinar and this week's webinar as well. We really appreciate it. With that being said, I'm going to say what I said last webinar. So, one of the biggest myths that I've heard over this last gardening season, and actually here very recently at my house by one of my friends, was that you can't grow a bunch of different types of pepper right next to each other without having them cross their flavors or color or texture or other things. And I am saying myth busted. Why? Well, this is my garden right behind me. This is actually the tomato and leafy green section of the garden right here. But right about there, the next bed over, you can actually see the peppers. And I did 80 different varieties of pepper in my garden this last year. Everything from super sweet, big, giant Aconcagua roaster style peppers to baby super sweet pepper, mini purple bells, all the way over to light spice, medium, and skyrocket ship spice. And at the end of the day, they were all completely different. I had them all right next to each other in the same beds, in the same environment. And a lot of times it'd be like a sweet one, a hotter one, a hotter one, a super hot one, and a sweet one again. And it'd be a completely mixed up. And at the end of the day, I saw no crossover characteristics. I actually had some really cool footage. If you guys head on over to the Backyard Farming Supply Instagram, you can check it out, especially with one particular pepper that was really variegated. If you guys know what that pepper is, post a comment down below. I'm going to leave it for you guys to go and find that pepper. You'll know which one I'm talking about, because it literally is half the leaf is white and half the leaf is green. So, at the end of the day, I grew peppers like that right next to traditional peppers, and I saw no crossover characteristics. So, it is what it is, but at the end of the day, I have proven, I think this was my 8th year at this house and this garden setup. Now, obviously, it changes every single year, but I've always put different types of pepper right next to each other, and I've never seen any crossover in flavor, texture, color, growth patterns, none of it. So, myth busted. Grow as many peppers as you want right next to each other. And before we get on today, we'd really like to thank our Backyard Farming Academy members. If you guys are curious about the Backyard Farming Academy, go on over to YouTube. Go on over to YouTube too, but go over to Facebook and check out the Backyard Farming Academy. Our Facebook group has a lot of different people in it that are contributing a lot of different questions, and we're just growing the community. So this is just the very beginning. It's going to get a lot better, especially with the help of you guys. So thank you very much for all that you do, the questions you bring, the engagement, the liking, of course, hitting that subscribe button, and as well as the bell for the notifications so you can watch our new content when it drops. We are dropping content all the time, weekly, and we're gearing up to be bringing a whole lot more live format content for you guys. So stay involved, and thank you very much. We really appreciate it. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and get into some of the garden mythbusters. Once again, Backyard Farming Academy, feed your world. That's really what it's all about. That's why we do this, guys. Backyard Farming Supply is created to give you the supplies that you need to be able to accomplish the goals and hit the plant health metrics that you want. And Backyard Farming Academy is created to give you the knowledge behind these methods, systems, techniques, and products so that you can take the car and drive it into the victory. It's really, really important knowing everything from a full comprehensive aspect. And if you guys have checked out Backyard Farming Academy and or the Seed Starting Blueprint, you'll know that we went extremely comprehensive with this series. The reason being, not one solution fits all gardeners. So we brought a lot of different solutions so that a lot of different gardeners can have confidence that they identified the solution that might be best for their space, their budget, their amount of time that they have, or the amount of gardening that they're trying to do, as well as the overall produce that they're trying to create to be able to feed their family. So feed your world with Backyard Farming Academy and supply the grow gear and products with Backyard Farming Supply. Backyard Farming Academy for the education. Backyard Farming Supply for the supplies, to keep it simple and sweet. You know, before we get started, gotta throw it out there. Hey, we're all human here. Lost my keys this morning. How annoying is that? Super annoying. We've all been there. So my brain's a little bit scattered, but it is what it is. I'm glad that I'm here doing this because this is truly what I love and enjoy to do. And I'm glad to be back in the garden, even if it's wintertime outside and we're hanging out in the digital garden with some digital farmers talking about some garden myths. So unleash the truth in your green thumb journey today with me, Tate Dooley, through Backyard Farming Academy via this webinar. Thanks for following on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and everywhere else. I'm going to keep on going. So one thing that is very interesting is the garden myths. We're going to do a little overview of a couple of them, and we've got a couple more really quick. I'm not going to go into them. I'm just going to let you know which ones they are so that way you can get nice and prepped. Myth number 1 is adding gravel to the bottom of your pots improves drainage. And we see this in a lot of different places: the bottom of the container, the bottom of the bed, the bottom of the planting hole, like we talk about here even further. Also, watering plants in the evening is detrimental to their health and can promote disease. Do you guys think it's true or not true? What about pruning during the dormant time of the season or through the thriving time of the season? We've all heard both ways. Some people are like, no, only trim in the winter. And oh, no, only trim when your plants are at maximum health. There's some truth to both of them. Which is right, which is wrong? We're going to get into it. Also, obviously, like we said earlier, plants needing a layer of rock or shard in the planting hole, just like the bottom of the container, same concept. And also, the good old Epsom salt myth. Is Epsom salt really as good as we've been told? I like it, but does it do everything? Because some people think that Epsom salt is the end-all, be-all garden fertilizer. We're going to go into all of this today. Of course, the little scrolly thing is going to not be like lined up, of course. So, you know, we're improving every single day, every single webinar. What do you guys think of this, by the way? Right off the bat, put a comment down below. Do you like this OBS format better than the StreamYard format? I do right off the bat. A lot more flexibility. There's always a learning curve, though. You know what I'm saying. All right. So myth number 1, adding gravel improves drainage. Like we said, could be the bottom of your container, could be the bottom of your bed, it could be in a lot of different places. But adding gravel to the bottom of any container actually hinders drainage. And really, I wish I had my infographic up and ready, but I was having some technical glitches bringing it in. This actually goes back to the concept of a perched water table and how water tables actually out even large scale aquifers, large scale water tables in Mother Nature in general. A lot of times actually seek the easiest path of pressure and of collection. So a perched water table is really all about larger volumes of area that can be easily filled up with water that have a decent pressure that allows them not to seep down lower, and because of this pressure, it actually draws the moisture back up into this water table. It's a really, really crazy system, but it's because of how water works with pressure, with oxygen, and with specific surface area of a lot of different minerals, rocks, and soil type. And it creates these perched water tables which leave plant roots sitting in excess water. And at the end of the day, if your plant root are sitting in excess water that especially can't drain, that's when a lot of problems are going to come along. Versus if that root was out into soil that has great drainage and it has a nice, consistent, homogeneous moisture retention and draining function, now Mother Nature, the soil, and those roots are in the perfect ecosystem, obviously with the right soil type and the right plant requirements. Now you're cooking with gas. You're going to ultimately allow your plant to be able to absorb a lot more moisture. So opt for pots with proper drainage instead of holes. And sometimes we even need to think about this in our bed designs. Stay tuned in the future because we're going to go into that in our bed design series where we talk about how to avoid perched water tables, doing the same thing and acting just like a container with rocks below it, but in a giant 20-foot long, 6-foot wide bed. Because sometimes we do things to the preparation of those beds that really don't bode well for us down in the future. The next one is watering plants in the evening hurts the plant and the root system. Well, going back to what we just said, and this is something that needs to be addressed in general real quick. This is assuming good gardening practices. This is assuming your plant's root system is not sitting in a perched water table with anaerobic water. This is assuming that you've got the right soil structure, good drainage, good water retention, that is aerobic in bacteria growth. And it's a non-anaerobic, that it's a aerobic bacteria, and we avoid any non-aerobic conditions. Now, if everything is right, this is actually false. And obviously, volume, once again, how much volume are we putting down? How much frequency? Because if it's just constant hose spigot running, now we might have some problems. I don't care what type of soil we have. But if all gardening conditions are correct, actually watering in the evening and nighttime and even middle of the night and even early mornings in the right volume and frequency can be magical. I like to call it cloning the jungle. Do we think that the jungle or, thriving areas of the continent that we live on are arid? No, most of the time they get a lot of little volumes of high frequency waterings. That just like Hawaii, it's like misting all the time. Well, plants love it. So watering in the evening can definitely be majorly beneficial. It can also reduce water evaporation. So if you're in a climate that you're like, whoa, my plants just don't retain enough moisture, or maybe I have a clay-based soil and I'm farming in the ground, or something like that, or excuse me, a sand-based soil and I'm farming in the ground and it just drains through immediately, well, that is where we might have some issues. And we really need to use water timing to really be able to maximize our water uptake of our plants. And sometimes that actually might be at night or in the super early morning or at the end of the day. It might even be you need to water at the end of the day, the very beginning in the morning, and really quickly in the middle of the day because of your soil and environmental conditions. So, once again, not one myth fits all busters, okay? But in general, 99% of the time, if you have the right conditions and you water a little bit in the evening, your plants are going to love it. So it's absolutely amazing. Another one is about pruning. And I feel that pruning has some of the most myths attached to it. That's for sure. At the end of the day, so many people have so many different myths, and it's not necessarily that any of them are right or wrong. It really depends on the plant. Like a tree, for example. Some trees, yes, it is way better to prune them in the middle of the winter. But for some of your bushes, some of your obviously plants that you're gearing up that you might have even been holding inside from last season to go out next year, not necessarily. And also, there's a lot of plants in general that really need to be thrived at their maximum health potential. Like tomatoes, for example. They really need to be pruned all the time. Because if we're pruning them all the time, it's actually going to cause them to grow a lot more rapid with an indeterminate tomato. Now with a dwarf tomato, once again, different genetic, different bag. We don't really want to prune those at all. But indeterminate tomatoes and even some of your explosive growth peppers are going to be benefited from being trimmed all the time. That is one of the things that actually made me fall in love with gardening, was shaping and pruning plants. So we use not only trimming at the opportune time, but using the opportune time to shape the plant the way that we want it to be. Maybe we want a big, nice, wide bush. Maybe we actually want a really tall, skinny plant. This can all be steered by us, just like a car going down the road, with different trimming techniques. So it's pretty interesting what we can make happen. And research the individual plants need and prune throughout the year based upon the specific purposes and shaping of the plant that you're looking for to encourage maximum yield, blooms, fruit set, as well as even plants and leaves and stems not hanging down into the ground where they can be a little bit more susceptible to pest and disease. The next one is that rocks boost drainage in planting holes. Same concept. Ditch the rock layer. The rock layer is doing nothing good for you. Sometimes we'll even throw mulch in. Sometimes we'll throw a different type of soil in that's more coarse. Now, specific plants can be specifically weird, and that is a thing. But in general, we overthink gardening a lot of times. I used to do this like crazy. I used to have like a 16 layer soil that had all these different spikes and layers and zones and texture and biological surface area. At the end of the day, it was a heck of a lot more work for basically the exact same results. And to be honest, a lot more cost and a lot more stocking of more ingredients and a lot more coaching and a lot more stress. So get rid of the stress, make gardening simple, make it easy. Don't overcomplicate it, and choose well-draining soil that you focus on the amendments and the nutritional value for optimal health, and you're good to go. I feel like a lot of YouTubers are coming out about this right now. I know Epic Gardening did a good piece about drainage and perch soils, and the same concept. So we love those guys over there. Give them some love on their YouTube channel as well. And the next one that we're going to get into is Epsom salt. Is Epsom salt the miracle cure or a marketing myth? It might be a little bit of both. It depends on what condition your plant is in. If your plant is super deficient in magnesium sulfate or Epsom salt is going to be an amazing product for you to use. But if you have too much magnesium and not enough calcium and not enough phosphate and not enough nitrogen, magnesium sulfate or Epsom salt will do nothing for you. You know, it's kind of crazy how we look at these things. A lot of times, this is actually what got me into creating Key to Life Nutrients a long time ago, was using and busting some of these common garden myths, especially when it came to fertilizer. Fertilizer is the jam. And at the end of the day, it's definitely one of my lanes of love and passion in the agricultural industry, as some of you guys might know. So I've been formulating nutrients for, since 2007, I started formulating nutrients. So it's been just a little while. And sourcing inputs probably starting in 2008 or 2009. So I first started looking at some of these miracle common things like the eggshell thing and the magnesium sulfate thing, and really going more off myth than off of using soil testing and targeted fertilizers for effective nutrient management versus opinion, right? There's always the opinion of somebody on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. Hey, here we are. Please like and subscribe down below. But at the end of the day, you really need to know what's going on with your specific plant to make sure that you're giving the solution that is best for it. Because a lot of times we have simple imbalances in our nutrients. Simple imbalances can actually be, instead of our calcium to magnesium ratio, which should basically remain the same. To keep it really basic, even though it's a little bit different, I'm going to use a 1-to-2 ratio. If you should have twice the amount of calcium and 1 part magnesium, and it should move like that in ratio across the plant's life cycle, but all of a sudden it's completely out of whack and it's the other way around. Now all sorts of other nutrients and their balances and their ratios that they have with other plants are going to change, like the nitrogen to phosphate, the phosphate to calcium, which then relies on the calcium to magnesium. How about the sulfur relationship with all of them? How about the calcium relationship with every other nutrient? Because calcium is one of the most antagonistic nutrients on the nutrient scale that plants rely on for maximum plant health. It likes to fight everything, versus sulfur and nitrogen like to work with everything. Antagonistic nutrients versus synergistic nutrients are ones that work with and ones that do not work with all the other nutrients that plants are looking to uptake. And the common big ag monster and method has taught us and traditional farmers that we only really need 16 or 17, I've heard up to 19 different nutrients. The main NPK model is 16 different nutrients. Do you guys think that's true? Post in the comment down below, because I have my own opinion. We'll get into that in the future. We have an organic versus synthetic webinar coming in a few webinars from now that we are really excited about. It's going to be good. We're going to bring on some guests. We're going to do a whole bunch of stuff from pro-synthetic angle, pro-organic angle, and we are going to show you how sometimes the hybrid right in the middle can be the best solution for you. But it depends on where you are. It depends on what inputs you have. If you have all the access to all the inputs in the world and you're on a farm, then fully organic, fully regenerative is possible. And we're really excited to talk about that in the future. Also, if you guys are curious about some of this style content, make sure you go jump over to our YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, and even TikTok. Yeah, we said it. So that you guys can keep engaged with Backyard Farming Supply and Academy and stay in the know when these series and webinars are coming out in the future. Also, if you guys are in the middle of designing one of your own farms, backyard farm, urban farm, or just have some general questions, feel free to hit us up at info@byfsupply.com and we can help you out. We specialize in helping people design their systems, and we really love doing it. But until then, let's get back into some garden myths. Pretty excited. So another one, and this, I feel like we've come a long way on this first one. All insects in the garden are harmful. Obviously, some people still think yes. A lot of us are coming around, and I think that one of the biggest ones that's fighting for good bugs everywhere is the ladybug, right? It might not be the most beneficial. It might not be the most voracious. It might not be the most predatory. It might not be any top dog assassin for bad bugs in the garden, but it helps, and it's increasing awareness of which bugs in the garden are extremely beneficial and which bugs in the garden are harmful. And I've got a specific one I'm going to go into on that might not even be on the slide. So we're going to throw a cherry on top, so make sure you stick around. The next one is that all organic pesticides are always safe. And that is definitely not true. There's some labeling loopholes that people can get through, especially with pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides in the traditional ag sectors, and some nasty ingredients that can be hidden as inert or other ingredients in pesticides and fungicides. And we'll go into that a little bit. Another one is that plants need to be watered every day. Do they? Do they not? I don't know. How about coffee grounds are an effective slug deterrent? We're going to start doing another couple webinars all about how to keep bugs and slugs out of your garden. It's going to be exciting. The next one is that fertilizing more is better for your plants. And obviously, that is not true. Everything in balance. Everything in balance. All companion planting and combinations work equally well. Maybe, maybe not. So, we will dive in. Let us dive in. I don't know if you guys have heard that before. If you know where it's from, post the comment down below. Anyway, all insects in the garden are harmful. There's our little ladybug, our ambassador for the good bug worldwide. Because no, not all insects are enemies, and there's a lot of really good bugs that can help you in a lot of different ways. So, beneficial bugs like ladybugs and pollinators control harmful pests and contribute to a healthy ecosystem. And when we look at this and we identify beneficial bugs and we attract them onto our property or garden naturally, it helps us to establish those populations for the long term. And this might even be of things that we release or things that we draw to our garden with other plants, flowers, trees, shrubs, grasses, and all sorts of things that we can lure good bugs to us. So if you guys have ever heard the term lure, that's really what it means. It's just like fishing, but we're fishing in the good bugs, and we can apply that in the other way, and we can fish away the bad bugs in the same but opposite manner. So it's really cool what we can do. You know, there's our little aphid friends right next to the ladybug over there. And at the end of the day, those are probably the most common garden pests that people face. Those and spider mites. And I'm going to go off on spider mites for a quick second, because there's also a lot of other types of spider mite that are really good for your plants, like the Persimolis or the Californicus. These are two actual spider mite species that prey on all other invasive spider mites, and they are carnivore in aspect. So once they run out of meat or other bugs, they don't eat the plants and they start dwindling off naturally. Then there's other bugs in our soil, springtails, Hypoaspis miles, all sorts of things that really prey on multiple different types of the food chain. Some of them feed on carbon only, like our coffee grounds. Some of them feed on other bad bugs. Some of them go after good and bad bugs and just general population check. Some of them only go after plants. Well, that's really the category that messes with our crop. But now after talking about it, can you see how these other types of bug category can really help us when introduced into our system, because they might go after, maybe it's a mold, maybe it's a plant material that hasn't broken down all the way yet. Maybe there's a lot of different things that really bring bad bugs into our soil food web ecosystem that has nothing to do with the plant in the beginning. And then it weakens the plant's defense system. And now the plant is sending off these signals which we as humans don't know about or hear, but they're there and bugs can sense them. And sometimes it says, hey, bad bug, I'm weak, come get me. And sometimes it says, hey, I'm super strong, stay away from me with my awesome waxy coating on all my leaves from all the microbial compost teas that you've been applying. That's a whole nother thing. So let's keep the myth busting rolling. This is one of the biggest ones. Organic pesticides are always safe. I got to go off on one individual component. Neem oil. Everybody loves neem oil. Neem oil can be really good. Don't get me wrong. But I have completely moved away from all oils. Why? Because they have a lot of cons that come with the pro. Let's talk about the pro really quick. The pro of a neem oil is 2 to 3 things. Really, the number one is that it coats the plant in this oily junk which bugs don't like to eat. And yeah, that's true. Depends on the type of bug, but in general, that's true. Number 2, the plant builds up its immune system because of this oil. I'm going to say myth busted, because at the end of the day, it actually does not. It's because of the systematic chemical that was applied that's in the neem oil. That's actually called azadirachtin. And azadirachtin is the main active ingredient. And this main active ingredient actually is a systematic ingredient that basically affects bugs when it's ingested, because now it's in the entire plant system, being a systematic active ingredient. And now when a plant bites that and it eats it, it causes an effect. Sometimes it's digestive effects, sometimes it's reproductive effects, sometimes it's nervous system effects. And there's a lot of other things that can go on there, but that's saved for the pesticide webinar that we'll do in the future. So with these couple different types of effects, there's a lot of different types of ingredients. So neem oil actually can prevent you from using a lot of other compounds, like even a nutrient. Let's say you want to foliar spray a nutrient, but now your plant is covered in oils. And because of the oil coverage, it actually basically puts a layer over the plant leaf, which makes the photosynthetic active radiation process, or photosynthesis, and the conversion of PAR, or photosynthetic active radiation, into glucose or sugars that then activate metabolic energy process that then bring other nutrients along and create other nutrients, and the whole magical process starts. But now we've got a filter over our leaf right in the beginning with this oil. Do you guys like oils on your skin? Not really. Even with body products, they've kind of gone away from oils. Same thing for plants. Everybody's going away from oils because when you clog up the plant, now the leaf is forced to get bigger because it needs a bigger solar panel. Sometimes people are like, oh, my leaves are gigantic when I use this neem oil. And yeah, it's cool. You got gigantic leaves. I've been there, done that, fallen in love with that. But at the end of the day, if now your plant is putting all of its energy into making bigger solar panels, instead of using the solar panels that it has effectively to also allow more light through the plant to other solar panels and more CO2 and O2 to cycle throughout the plant, allowing a better breathing process to happen. But I digress. There it is, myth busted. Not all organic pesticides are always safe, and sometimes we use really weird things like oils with garlic in them, and oils with salts in them, and oils with other types of oil in them, and it can just immediately hinder your plants. I've seen more damage done to crops with neem oil and oil-based products than anything else, besides a really heavy hand when it comes to the fertilization. But 9 times out of 10, people mess up their garden with neem oil. Got nothing but love for your neem oil. There's certain aspects and certain climates and outdoor settings that neem oil can really shine. And azadirachtin is an amazing ingredient, but it can be applied in a way that it doesn't really bring many oils onto your plant. So let's keep diving into our garden myths. The next one is that plants need to be watered every day. Do they? Don't they? Do they need to be watered every single day with a 5-gallon bucket of water? The most water possible. No. I know some gardeners, my mom, she just drowns plants. She waters every single day for minutes and minutes and minutes, just like with this constant stream. And it's like you stick your finger down in there and you're like, that thing has been sopping wet for a while. So in that aspect, myth busted. Gardens do not need to be watered every single day. But if you have a really good soil and you have a really good irrigation system and you're doing controlled small bursts, high frequency, low volume bursts of nutrients and water at the correct pH, yes, they do need to be watered every single day. So our own myth is busted and non-busted. And that's the nature of the beast, guys. We threw this in here on purpose because some of these myths, as you've seen, can go both ways. And it really depends on you, your hand, your setup, your system, your plants, your soil, your environment. But we always want to use discernment and apply all good typical watering practices and learn your plant's needs. Learn your soil's needs. Learn your characteristics of your garden. Then adjust based upon soil moisture levels and optimal water techniques for your biggest, most bad A flourishing garden you've ever had. So it is amazing how these things work and how they go both ways. This is another one. It's a great myth. Some people are like, well, all I need is my coffee grounds and my Epsom salt. My garden's exploding. My eggshells. Now you're cooking with the right gas. When you start bringing multiple types of these easy to access reused inputs and you start attacking different nutrients and different aspects to the system, now you might be able to. But with just Epsom salt, probably not. Epsom salt, coffee grounds, probably not. You start tilling in your cover crop that was sequestering nitrogen, and now you're going in the right direction. And you might add some rock dust, and you might amend with some other nutrients. Now the whole thing is cooking with gas, and all of those really can work with each other a lot better. So, coffee grounds. Are they an effective slug deterrent or nutrient? Well, we're going to go into the slug deterrent piece first. It depends. How many slugs? What type of slug? What type of soil? What type of plants? Where did you put the coffee grounds? Did you sprinkle them around the base of the soil 360? Did you just broadcast it real quick? Did you put it in one spot of the bed or container? Because these application techniques really also come down to how effective is our garden myth. And that's the thing with a myth, right? A myth is you got to go out into the forest when it's a full moon under the specific tree in the specific direction with the other specific rock, and you got to hit. Oh, well, that's a myth, right? Well, there's always variables in myth, and there's variables in gardening. So there's variables to gardening myths. Yeah, we're having fun with it though. So, you know what, guys? I'm gonna pause real quick and say I need you guys to jump on here. Who wants to come on? Who wants to come on to these webinars? Because I feel like sometimes I'm just rambling. Because I am. And nobody wants to be rambled at. So I need some guests. Come hang out. Come hang out with us. We've got some in the queue. We're working through the details. But we want more. We want as many as we possibly can. Because if you've got something to say about coffee grounds and slug deterrent that I didn't say, come on over. Come hang out. Let's listen to it. We'd love to have you. By no means do I know everything. I'm a student till the day I die, and I love to learn from you guys in the backyard farming community too. That's what makes it fun. So, we're gonna talk more about these slug deterrents, but we have a really exciting webinar coming in the future that's all about earwigs and slugs. How do you keep the earwigs and slugs out of your garden? I don't know. I got a couple good pro tips that I've found over the last, 2 decades of gardening. And I want to bring them to you guys. But I need some guests. Comment down below if you guys have some really cool bug traps or lures for earwigs and or slugs. Because we would love to have you come on the show. We'd love to have you on the webinar and come hang out and let's talk about earwigs and slugs. But coffee grounds provide limited slug deterrent and can even burn roots in high concentration. Why? There's a little bit of ammonia. You haven't really corrected the nitrogen cycle. It's also, when we look at, once again, ratios, sometimes we have to look outside of the nutrient realm because I've got a trick question for you. What are the 3 main nutrients? I'm going to bring this in a whole, I'm going to do this on a short. You guys get it now first, being on the webinar, so that you guys will have better answers when I bring it to the short when we might do a giveaway. What are the first 3 nutrients that plants need to start the entire process? Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Water, air, and carbon. And carbon comes through the water and the oxygen. So, at the end of the day, they need water and they need oxygen first. Carbon, oxygen are ultimately, carbon and nitrogen are the main 2 things that we're looking for in coffee grounds. We've got a carbon to nitrogen ratio that ultimately is the only 2 things that you're getting from coffee grounds. Now, sometimes you might get a little bit of ammonia because the nitrogen cycle is not in a plant amino-based or nitrate-based cycle, because there's nitrates and there's nitrites. So there's ammoniacal nitrogen, and then there's plant-available nitrogen. We need to allow the biology that lives in the carbon that the coffee grounds can give us to be able to convert these nutrients. Consider safer and more effective alternate traps like beer traps or hand picking or the torch. But we'll get into that in the future. So, this one I feel like I see go completely in 2 completely different directions. And that's outdoor gardeners versus 3 different directions. You got your landscape guys, your turf grass landscape guys, and they're the worst. No offense, guys, I got a bunch of them as buddies, but they use 20-20-20 or 20-50-10 or 10-50-13 hardcore NPK based nutrients to grow grass, completely over fertilizing. And because of that, now they're chasing it forever and ever. Now their soil's dependent upon it, their plant's dependent upon it. They basically have an IV in the plant and garden's arm, giving it the life sustenance on its deathbed. But the next type that I see is the indoor gardener. The indoor gardeners, because they're around their plants all the time, so they can be like, ooh, I want to mess with it. How do I get it to grow better? And this was me, 1,000%. I've burned plants so many times on purpose and on accident because trying out new fertilizer formulas. What are you going to do? You're gonna, at some point, you got to push, push, push. And ultimately, it's good for you guys. I sit there and I mess with plants and fertilizer formulas and ingredients to the nth degree, to the point that I do kill plants. So now I know what it takes, or maybe it doesn't kill the plant and I know what it takes for you guys to have the best results possible. At the end of the day, it's what we got to do. But I also see a lot of cultivators that are like, they rely upon their crop to produce the dollars to pay the bills, that are experimenting all the time and ultimately don't have successful harvests because they can't stick to one protocol. Then there's the complete other way, which is the old school outdoor ag farmer, big ag. I've been doing it this way 3 generations now. Boy, I ain't going to try nothing new for the last 30 years. I've been there. They're cool people. I love to hang out with them. And when you can get them to try something new, it's magical because they get really, really excited. But at the end of the day, fertilizing more is not better. It's fertilizing the right amount in the right balance for the right type of plant, for the right type of soil, with the right type of water, at the right type of pH range, at the right time of year. It's not hard at all. That's why I fell in love with it so much, because it is so complex. But in general, when in doubt, fertilize minimally, more frequently, and look into the breakdown times of your nutrients so that you know when they're becoming available and when they're not. Because some things become available immediately and some things take a really long time to become available. Some things can actually not even become available the first gardening season, and some things are available the next day. So it's a complex thing. Trust your fertilizer formulators, read the back of your label, and hit up your fertilizer companies if you ever have any questions. And if you, any fertilizer formulator giving any good recommendation, they're either going to tell you to go really light, or they're going to ask you to test your soil and understand your plant needs and organic fertilization requirements, because a soil test is going to give you an actual target board to aim at for your organic fertilizer formulas, versus if you haven't done any testing and you have added and added and added and added and taken away, now you have no idea what is going on. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. I'm getting feedback from some people that there is some fuzziness going on with the slide. Let me know if you guys are seeing fuzzy slides or clear then fuzzy. We're trying to work through the OBS studio and nail it down so that it's correct. But I digress. Test your soil. It gives you, test your water. Now you can come up with a good fertilizer formulation for your specific plants. But that is the best way to actually take it seriously. Speaking of taking it seriously, Mother Nature takes it most seriously with her friends, all the companion plants and bugs in the world, and they all work equally well. Busted. Some plants do not grow well next to each other at all. And like I said earlier, with the peppers, some say that they don't, and some do, and some don't. And which one's where? Well, depends on the type of plant. So look into your plant companion relationships to ensure that they work equally well and that they hold real potential, but blanket statements like marigolds repel all pests or mosquito plants repel all mosquitoes in your entire property is a busted myth. It's all about where you put them in your garden, what else they are by, Because if they're right by a plant that attracts mosquitoes with a plant that is supposed to repel mosquitoes, now the mosquito and the plants are just confused. So, research the plant interactions and consider factors like sunlight and focus on specific pairings to build a balanced and beneficial garden ecosystem. There are some flowers that don't go next to some trees. There are some bushes that don't go next to some vegetables. There are some bugs that don't go by some plants because they'll take over. It's a balancing act, and we've got some fun tools coming your way. Make sure you go jump over to backyardfarmingsupply.com and over to byf.academy for some of the info tools that we've got coming. We've got guides and calendars and logs and quick guides to be able to give you a quick reference as to which don't work well together and which do work well together. And that's going to be exciting. I think you guys are going to love it. But remember this. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And that's with everything. Hey, I didn't do well with my garden last year. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Oh, I don't want to garden anymore. No, use what you learned to be able to do better in the future. I'll tell you guys right now, I'm slacking right now. I do not have garlic planted. I grew so much garlic last year. I probably don't need to plant garlic. So that's cool. But I love growing garlic. And I think that it's an amazing companion plant, especially when put around the outside of your garden to keep some pests away. And it's an easy plant to tuck into an area, and it doesn't really affect many other things versus a lot of other things out there. So plant now. Don't beat yourself up. We all slack sometimes. Get out there. Go plant your garlic. Go plant your trees. Go grow your vegetables. Prepare for next year. Build your seed room. But most importantly, question everything. Your garden doesn't need to face south. Another garden myth. I have beds pointed all the directions. I had somebody come into my garden last year and they're like, your beds are pointed the wrong way. I was like, well, you know why I pointed them this way? Because it's going to make my life about 500 times easier if my house door is here and my garden beds are facing this way versus if they're facing this way and I've got to walk around this way all the time. With the size of beds that I did, also with the angle of my yard, also with the amount of trees that I have, I actually got more sun exposure by not planting and facing south. So it depends on your property. There's a lot of different things going on. But yeah, 10 of the biggest garden myths debunked. Go check out that article by The Guardian. We use some of their stuff here today. We always like to, sometimes I'm so far removed from the beginning of my gardening career that I don't think that way. So I gotta always go check. I like to use the Google and the internet, the interwebs, to be able to give me an idea of what I need to go research about. But house plants is another one. Do misting your houseplants really work? Depends. What's your humidity? When did it rain last? What type of houseplant is it? Are you putting any foliar nutrients in the water? Because that's going to change that variable right there. I don't know. Can you compost your dog poop? Did it eat GMO grain? What do you want in your food? I don't know. Does planting with the moon work? I think that the moon and the sun and the gravitational forces control all of Mother Nature. How about vinegar as a weed killer? I don't know. What do you guys think? Because I've seen a lot of people claim vinegar as a weed killer. Whether it was Ontario, Canada, or other places. Not really. You're gonna do a lot better, especially at this point in time, just going and buying a Fisker weed puller and pulling that thing out, then going and introducing some weird vinegar or some weird compounds into your garden that you don't know about. LED grow lights. They used to be a myth. How about these LED grow lights? Myth busted, don't work. Now, other way around. LED grow lights are the kings of the grow light industry, but they're the most expensive too. Depends. There's a lot of different things. With that being said, we're coming up on the hour. We got about 5 minutes left of an hour of Tate rambling. I can't wait to have some of you guys join me on this, by the way. That way you guys don't have to only listen to me. Some other people can join. I want to hear some of your opinions. I want to hear some of your advice, some of your angles. We've all got different angles and different advice, expertise areas. And gardening is a constant learning process. Embrace your research. Challenge assumptions and experiment with confidence. By understanding plant science, debunking myths, and tailoring your practices to your unique garden, you can cultivate success and joy, and a massive harvest with mind-shattering flavors that people have never had. It's always one of the biggest highlights of my day and my summer when some of my friends who travel globally all the time show up at my house and they're like, dude, I eat organically everywhere I go. I've been to 4 continents this year, and your tomatoes and your peppers and your garden tacos blew everything else I've had this year completely out of the water. That is a good feeling. So empower yourself, feed your world with Backyard Farming Academy, and supply your garden with Backyard Farming Supply. I'm Tate Dooley. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.